Hello, wanted to talk to you today about using a foam roller, a massage stick and some trigger point release balls to help specifically with achy legs and hips. I regularly recommend this to people that I treat that are runners, for example, or cyclists, or those that are doing a new sport and their legs are feeling a little bit achy. It's a great way, in the absence of being able to go and get a massage therapist to iron them out for you, to sort of self-treat, if you like. It's not going to necessarily get to the complete bottom of it, but it will certainly help keep them a little bit less heavy feeling, and a little bit less prone to injury, hopefully. So hopefully you've got a foam roller at home. You may not have, but it's worth investing in one, certainly if you're upping your exercise or anything like that. So I prefer the ones with the nice little bumps on. I just find that it gets into the knots a little bit better. There's quite a lot of videos out there on how to use them, and most of them are really good. Personally, this is the way I would use it, but you might find something works better for you, and that's great. But just for the purposes of demonstrating, if you've never used a foam roller before, what we want to do is not roll up and down, and not really get into the nitty gritty of the nasty bits in the legs. What we want to do is work on those bits that are really, really ouchy. There are a lot of, well, it used to be the case that you were advised to foam roll your IT band. Please don't. It's really, really painful, and actually you're not going to do anything to your IT band. Your IT band is going to be as tight as it is. It's the muscles surrounding the IT band that cause that. You may have heard of ITB syndrome, but it's the muscles on the sides of the IT band that are causing the problem, not the band itself. The band itself is always going to be as tight as it is. So please don't roll into that little groove that you've got in the side of your leg there. You should be able to feel it. If you sort of tense your quad muscles, a big bulky muscle here, you should feel a natural little dip down the side there. That's your IT band, and that's the bit you do not want to foam roll, because it will really hurt, and actually just bruise you, and it's just unpleasant for everybody involved. So with your foam roller, what you would do, you can roll the front of your thighs, which is great. I personally don't focus too much on there, but I do foam roll the front. It's usually the side that, not right on that IT band, but the side I do. So depending on how your legs feel, you would start effectively at just above your knees and then roll down. So you're getting right into the front of your legs there. Now, don't put so much pressure when you're going back up again. More pressure when you're rolling up the leg. Just stimulates the blood in the right direction, really. If you find that you've got a really little knotty bit, which I've got right now, rest on it, that's fine. And what you can do is just roll over a little bit over the top of it. That will help it release. It's not necessarily going to feel very comfortable when you're doing that, but it will help it release. And then move on again. What you can find, if you've got a really stubborn bit, similar to how I was discussing in another video with the shoulders, you rest until the muscle almost sort of breaks underneath it, or the knot breaks underneath it. You can do that as well. So you can do this. If you want to get a little bit more pressure, you can go right the way down and then just rest there. I've got a little knotty bit. So rest until you've got rid of it. As I say, you can just roll gently over it as well, which breaks it up nicely for you. Do that for about 2 or 3 minutes. I won't do the 2 or 3 minutes. You'll be bored of me by then. Right down the front there. And then you progress on to working down the side. Now, as I said, not right on the side, not on that IT band bit, that natural dip in the side of your thigh, because it's just going to hurt. So you would effectively, you're going to get to the side. I'm not right on my IT band. I'm on the side of my quad muscle. I did go for a run this morning, so I say run. I didn't go for a run. I ran on the treadmill, which I find a little bit boring. But the side of my leg's a little bit tight as a result of that. So I've got a really nasty knot right sort of midway out there on the opposite leg, obviously, that I'm just resting on. So I would rest on this until that breaks up naturally, or breaks up under the pressure. I don't need to keep just rolling up and down, because you'll be there forever. It's not necessarily going to break the knots up as much as you'd like them to, so you can just rest on it. If you need to, just move slightly. That really also a little bit uncomfortable. Just move slightly so that it breaks it up for you. And then what you would do, again, I'm not going to stay there for until it takes to break because you'll be bored of me. Roll right down, and what you can do is get right into that hip flexor muscle, or one of the hip flexor muscles that causes a few problems actually. It's known as a TFL, and it's a triangular shaped muscle that inserts into your IT band at the top there. It can get really tight, and certainly at the moment, if we're sitting down a little bit more, it's going to be getting uncomfortable and shortened. So resting on it is quite a good way to do it, and you can get right into there. And again, you wouldn't put any pressure on rolling up. You would put more pressure on when you're rolling your leg over, well, up to the top of your leg effectively. So not right into that IT band. If I did that, I would effectively, the difference would look like that. I'd be at that angle, and actually that really is not very nice. So that's how you would help your quad muscles release a little bit, and certainly help the edge of your quad muscles that are going into that IT band, because if they do get tight, what they do is pull the IT band, and that's when you might get knee pain or hip pain. More often than not, depending on your sport or your activity, it will be knee pain, and it's a really shooting pain in the side of your leg, and it can be really uncomfortable and actually take you out of your sport or your activity for a little while, because you can't run with it hurting. And effectively what's happening, if you've got the bobbly bits of your bones, the IT band goes right down the side of your knee junction, if you like. When it's tight, it pulls that your muscles are tight, they pull that tendon across the bone, which, as you can imagine, is quite uncomfortable. So that would be how you'd use a foam roller for your front of your legs, or the fronts of the tops of your legs. What you can also do is use it for your hamstrings. I personally prefer a ball for this, but you can use it for your hamstrings. And effectively what you would do is sit on top of it, if you can, and then you would gradually roll down like that. Now I find I don't get quite so deep into my hamstrings for that, but what I would do is use it for the side of my glutes, which you can really get into there. Might be a little bit uncomfortable for you, but if your glutes are tight, they're going to be uncomfortable regardless of what way you release them. The good thing is they forgive you for it, and they're much less painful the next day. So you would just, using the leg that you're not rolling as support, keep that foot nice and flat on the floor. Mine was just up in the air, but keep it nice and flat on the floor, and then you would roll down. So I'm just getting a nice massage into the side of my glutes, and it works quite well. Now obviously if you've got a sore shoulder, so I appreciate not everybody's got that range of movement in their shoulder, and certainly if you've got a sore shoulder, you're not going to want to balance on one arm like I was doing there and that foot. You can use a ball, which I'll show you in a minute. I'll just do the foam roller ones first, and then I'll show you how to use a ball to do some of these things. What I will use the foam roller for is my lower legs, so my calf muscles. Get in the right position. So you can again roll up and down on it, or equally you can put one leg over the other, rest where there's a sore bit, and roll across. And you're getting a massage with that, the rolling back. If you wanted to do the thing, you can lift yourself up and then roll like that. Again, you've got to have happy shoulders to do so. So if you haven't got very happy shoulders, mine are okay. I can support my weight like that quite comfortably, and it doesn't hurt. But if you find that it's hurting, or you've had a shoulder injury, then please don't do it that way. Do it with your legs resting, either on the foam roller, or I'll show you with the ball in a minute. But you can, just to get more of a massage, roll across. And with the textured foam roller, you'll find that there's big flatter bits here, and then smaller nodules. Find the smaller nodules that gets you there quicker, and then you would just roll over the top, so gently like so, and it will break up the knots. Now most of us tend to get the knots right up in the meaty part of the calf muscle rather than down by the ankle, so by all means roll it up further, find the little knotty bits, and do the same thing across like that. So that is how you would use a foam roller in a nutshell. So I use it specifically for my routine, is using it for my quads, the side of the quads there, and then into my glutes. That tends to be how I do. I have my own little pattern, and you might find you have yours too, or you prefer certain tools for certain parts of the body, or certain parts of the leg or the body, depends on how you want to use it. You could also get a massage stick. Now, these bits move round. They're brilliant for the front of the shin there. So we don't always appreciate these little muscles here and how much work they're doing. But certainly if you're doing activity where you're jumping a lot or running or, you know, using this part of your leg a lot, in theory, if you're getting tight in the back of the leg, you're going to start getting tight at the front of the leg. And the problem with these little muscles here is that if they start getting a bit of an overuse syndrome, that's when we start seeing shin splints, and in the worst case scenario, stress fractures. But you'll know if you're getting a shin splint because you'll get a really sharp, very uncomfortable burning pain in the front there. It almost feels like your leg's on fire, or the front of your leg's on fire. To be honest, that's how I've had it described to me. Thankfully, I've never suffered with them. I had the odd niggle, usually if you've done a lot of uphill or downhill stuff, because you're using those little muscles a little bit more. So you can use one of these to do it, and you would effectively just roll up. You can apply as much pressure as you're comfortable with. It shouldn't be agony, but you should feel that you're massaging the leg out there, and you would just roll up and down for, again, maybe a minute or two on each leg. You're not going to be there forever, but just rolling up and down, and actually that works really nicely for that. So I would tend to use the stick for this. If you are particularly achy there, you might find that a spiky ball works okay for that as well. You can just roll that up and down effectively like that to break up any adhesions you might have in the muscle, or sticky bits you might have in the muscle. And you can play around with that. So if you're people that I've treated that are getting shin splints or have had those sort of symptoms, that sharp sort of pain there, are generally prescribed that they use a spiky ball just to roll up and down, and you can regulate the pressure that you're putting on there. If you try to use the foam roller on there, it would be quite uncomfortable, and actually it's quite difficult to balance for some people when they're doing that. So you can use, as I say, the stick to do the front of your leg. You can equally use it to do the back of your leg. So if you do have shoulder issues and the balancing, trying to get it on the foam roller is a problem for you, you can use the stick roller, and then you would roll up, and as you can see from how my leg's going, you can see how it's working the muscle there. If, like with the quads I was saying, when you find that sore bit, you can rest on it. So you can rest here for a little while until it loosens up. So I've got a bit of a sticky bit there, and I can just push into it, and that's actually working quite well. It's releasing it quite nicely, and then you'd go on your merry way and go back up. No pressure on the way down, and then back up again. Obviously your calf muscles do take a lot of the brunt, and they've got a hell of a lot going on in there to help with circulation as well. So if they get tight, that's when we get cramp at night. Usually at night it's the nicest time to be woken up with cramps. So by ironing them out and making sure they're happy, hopefully will stop any cramp-like symptoms. I do treat a lot of people with cramp, unfortunately, and it's always here they get it, sometimes in the hamstrings, but usually in the calf muscles, and it's not very pleasant, obviously, and quite uncomfortable. So in the absence of being able to get into your therapist, a nice stick roller, foam roller, or you can use a ball. So to discuss how you would use a trigger point ball, mine is the lacrosse ball. It's got a little bit of give in it, but not an excessive amount of give in it. A tennis ball might be a bit too soft, but actually it depends on how sensitive your legs are. You can use a spiky ball, but I find that actually with the pressure I put on, I just end up with a lot of little holes in my leg. Well, not holes, but dents in my leg that take a little while to go, and they don't look very attractive. So you'd start in the side. I should see what I'm doing a little bit better. So you're going to start, I would tend to start a little bit higher up. So I know I always get a knot, particularly randomly on my left leg, not on my right leg. So you'd find the knotty bit, press on the ball and then cross your leg over it, and you're just going to rest there until it melts underneath it. You can just move it slightly if you find it's not quite on there. For people that have been treated by me, you'll generally know when I've found a really knotty bit, because I quite often apply a bit of pressure there, and it will usually feel a little bit unpleasant until it starts loosening up, and it usually loosens quite quickly, or relatively quickly, and the pain subsides. What I would say is you don't want to be getting, 10 being the worst pain, you don't want to be going really above a 4 for this. It shouldn't be a 4, ideally. It should be something a little bit less than that. But yeah, you would just rest on there, and if you find that you're not quite getting it, just move it a tiny bit and then wait until the muscle gives. What you'll find is the ball almost feels like it's going to roll out from underneath where you're pressing when it's about to release. So you'll kind of go, that feels a bit weird, and then all of a sudden it will go clonk, as the knot just sort of gives underneath it, which is what you're aiming for. Bear with it. It is a little bit of a strange sensation when you first sort of experience it. So you might find that actually you go and go, oh, I don't like it. But actually it'll be fine. Honestly, it'll feel a lot more comfortable. Very occasionally people do bruise with this. It depends on what you're like in terms of bruising. I don't tend to, but I know that certainly people that bruise very easily sometimes with this trigger point sort of work might just get a little circular bruise on their leg. I would say if you are the sort of person that bruises easily, probably use the stick roller, or maybe the foam roller if your shoulders are happy with it, so that you're not bruising yourself. We don't want you to bruise and feel uncomfortable afterwards. So you would just, when that's given, you'd then move it to the next uncomfortable bit. Now, with your calf muscles, you've got your gastrocnemius, which is 2 big muscles. They're the big meaty ones at the back there. And you can quite often see with people that have got really defined muscles, you can sort of see it goes like that, and there's a little sort of cross section in the middle. That gets really knotty and really uncomfortable. So if you find it on you, rest in there as well. So rest on the belly of the 2 lobes of the gastroc, but also in the middle there to really get into that knotty bit, and that should loosen that up for you. So I would always use myself. I use the ball to release my calves. I do use the stick roller occasionally. I don't always use the foam roller because of the getting an angle. I tend to have a little routine with it, but I just find that the routine works well for me, and I carry on and get on with my normal day. With the ball for hamstrings, so you would basically go right underneath where your leg meets your glutes muscles, and again you're just going to rest on there. Now obviously you can't see where that ball's gone because it's disappeared into the 2 main sort of parts of my hamstring, so right into the groove there. And again you would rest there until it just feels a little bit less uncomfortable. So you would then move down as you're going. I tend to sit and watch TV when I'm releasing both my hamstrings and my calf. I just sit on the floor watching the TV, and it just fits into my normal day then. I always do this if I've had a run, just to make sure my legs are ironed out, any sort of sticky bits are loosened up, and then I can go on and have another run in a couple of days' time with no bother. So yeah, you would just, with the ball, you're just going to move it further down in between your hamstrings until you reach the back of your knee. Now do not put the ball in the back of your knee, it's a very delicate structure, and actually you're just going to hurt yourself. So you would stop when you get to the end bit of the proper meaty muscle sort of feel there. So that is how you would release the bulk of your leg. Now, as I said earlier, you can get quite uncomfortable in your hip flexors, and particularly at the moment, I would imagine people are, for one, I'm getting quite tight hip flexors because I'm sitting down more than I normally do. What you can do is use a ball for this. I know I demonstrated a little bit with the foam roller, and that's great to get sort of into here, but it doesn't quite get into the deeper structures. So you might find that you need a softer ball for this to start with, because my ball hasn't got a lot of give in it. I'm used to it, so I'm going to continue using this ball, but what I would say is maybe start with a tennis ball or something that's just got a little bit more give in it if you do this. Don't want you hurting yourself. So you can lay on the floor, I hope you can see me, And then you find your hip bone, which mine's there, get the ball, and you're effectively just going to lay your weight onto it. Now, you might need to move around a little bit to get where you need to go. What you'll tend to find is when you found the spot that's uncomfortable, you'll know it, obviously, it goes without saying really, but you can just rest on there and you'll go from a, oh God, that really is not comfortable, what is she making me do or suggesting that I do, to, oh, actually that's giving quite nicely. So it does just get that triangular muscle I was saying about at the beginning of the video. This really works on releasing that when it's tight and it's just sort of gone into lockdown. It also gets some of the deeper muscles, but primarily it's the TFL that we're working on here. And again, you'll just lay there until it's loosened up. About 2 minutes, maybe 2 to 3 minutes, and you'll find that loosens quite nicely. So if you are noticing that when you're getting up, you're not able to straighten up properly, there's going to be 2 or 3, but 2 main things that are causing that. Tight hip flexors that are keeping you in a stooped, or your hips in a closed position, if you like, and tight hamstrings because they're being shortened when you're sitting down as well. So they don't want to stretch to their full capacity. So by doing these, you're going to loosen those structures up and hopefully stop that kind of, God, I feel like an old lady getting up whenever I'm trying to stand up, or man, depending on who you are. So yeah, you would just try and loosen those up. So that would be how you get into those. Now I did say about doing the glutes, didn't I? So you can either use, as I say, the foam roller for your glutes, or if you're feeling brave, you can use this ball or your own version of it. And effectively, you're going to get the ball into the side of your glutes there and then find the really ouchy bit. Now, in clinic, I unfortunately do this with my elbow, which people love, as you can imagine. But you would sit on the ball there. And again, you're going to rest until such times as that muscle loosens up. I think there are a hell of a lot at the moment of online classes, which is absolutely great. But I think a lot of us are probably going to be using our glutes a little bit more than we were. And they're going to be feeling a little bit tight. So this works quite well. Again, you can do this while you're watching TV and just get rid of that knotty area. But it really does get into it quite nicely. And if you've got that burning sensation or that kind of deep muscle ache when you're getting up and down, so when you're getting up from a seated, or when you're going down into a seated position or up from a seated position, then this works really well to just loosen that up. And again, you would just sit there until the muscle eases. So find your own way of doing these. I've got a bit of a routine in that I use the foam roller to do the front of my thighs and the side. I do work down the side of the glutes if they're not playing up too much with the foam roller. I then move on to the ball just in the back of my calf and the back of my hamstrings, or into my hamstrings. And then I use this for the front. What I would also then do myself, because I did suffer with plantar fasciitis years and years ago, but I appreciate my feet are obviously taking a battering if I'm running however many miles I run in the morning. I then use the squidgy ball, the spiky ball, sorry, to just roll out my foot and make sure that that's happy as well. So I have my own set routine with it, but hopefully this has given you a bit of an idea on how to use these tools in the absence of being able to get your legs massaged and any niggles going on sorted out. What I would say is if you're having specific issues, please do get in touch. You can either contact me via Facebook, which is TC Sports Massage, or through my website, which is tcsportsmassagetherapy.com, just to confuse everyone, it's slightly different, and I'd be happy to speak to you. But take care of your legs. Please keep up your exercise, but just make sure your legs are fit and healthy to do so, and hopefully we'll see you in clinic very, very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.